In yet another unique video, I'm going to talk about the connection between the Twilight Zone, Rush, my favorite band, and veganism, my diet of 29 years. Can you believe I've gone 11 years without making a video like this? These are three of my favorite things, although I've talked about them a lot separately. Just wanted to make a video about today, July 4th. Yesterday, the 3rd, I noticed there's no fireworks stands around here. And I saw in the news at a hotel room about certain counties banning fireworks. And a couple days ago, I found out that TV has canceled the Twilight Zone marathon, another big tradition of mine that helps make the holiday my favorite holiday. I guess the Sci-Fi Channel figures America is over. Why bother? I've used the show Twilight Zone as a backdrop to some videos where I show some bad behavior in some people on YouTube. There's a connection to veganism right there. And then Rush, best band in the world, has a song about the Twilight Zone called The Twilight Zone. And me becoming a fan of the show, I think has nothing to do with Rush, which is very interesting, because Rush is a fan of the Twilight Zone, and a lot of their songs have some connections with the show. A lot that I only noticed after a long time looking at the names of the episode titles of the Twilight Zone. For instance, there's one song called The Prime Mover, and at some point I noticed that there's a Twilight Zone by the same name, but the song doesn't seem to have anything to do with that episode. Me and Rush lyricist Neil Peart think a lot alike. And another coincidence is, and something I didn't really notice, I knew the song back in the 80s, and I became a big fan of the Twilight Zone in the 90s, which has just grown and grown. And I developed shows that were favorites, and after a while I noticed the Rush song covers 2 episodes of the Twilight Zone, and those 2 episodes just happen to be, one is my favorite episode, and another one is another one I really like. So let's get into some of these lyrics. The song starts with, "A pleasant-faced man steps up to greet you." That's not really how the episode goes. They have some creative leeway there. "Beneath his hat, the strangeness lies. Take it off, he's got 3 eyes." Now at this point, you know, everybody knows what that episode is. Now he is a pleasant-faced man, yes. He's the guy behind the counter at the restaurant. And that is my favorite episode of all time. It has been for the last 15 or so years. It's called, "Will the Real Martian Please Stand Up?" Martian in a Diner. That was a really good episode. And I think it's a favorite of a lot of people because it's always on in prime time during the 4th of July marathon, most often at 8 o'clock. It flows really well. It keeps a mystery going. It keeps you entertained. Oh, and the comedy in it, even though it's not a comedy, there's funny stuff in it. Now that has no connection with veganism. That's just a good sci-fi story. But the next verse does. Let's see. It goes, "You wake up lost in an empty town." Now that could be like 3 or 4 episodes there. Wondering why no one else is around. Now that sounds a lot like the first episode called "Where Is Everybody?" There's a few like that, but let's keep going. And then they jump to the very end of the episode here. "Look up to see a giant boy. You've just become his brand new toy." It took me a long time to realize what this episode was, partly because that episode isn't aired very much, but lately it's been on every marathon. It would help to know that Rush changed the story a little bit for it to rhyme with the word toy. They used the word boy. But in the episode, it's a girl. So spoiler alert on a 60-year-old episode. This is the one where a couple wake up and they don't know where they are. And they go down to the kitchen and everything is fake. In the end, we see that they're in this fake town on some giant girl toy town, and the 2 people were added to it because they fell into the Twilight Zone one night when they got a little too drunk. Now right there you can easily see the connection with veganism. Just became his brand new toy. That is how we treat animals these days. The Twilight Zone often tells these fables. At some point, I read that this show was really using science fiction to camouflage the fact that they were criticizing humanity and society. Now here, they probably weren't focusing on the way we treat animals, maybe the way we treat other races. And there's a lot of episodes that are like this, showing humans being treated by other species the way we treat other species. And interestingly, one of those episodes is the most popular Twilight Zone episode, the episode called To Serve Man. And I would guess this episode is only popular with the public because of the play on words, maybe? At the end, they find out that the title of the alien's book, which is To Serve Man, is actually, spoiler alert, a cookbook. It was a nice play on words there that they reveal at the end. And vegans have made this case that aliens might see us as food and not care about our welfare at all. And everyone would agree that would be wrong, only because we are the ones being talked about. See, it all comes back to selfish behavior among humans. This is one of the biggest problems with humans, which leads me to the end of this video, where I suggest you watch this video that I made 5 years ago, showing the similarities between vegan Cheetah, his behavior, and a character in the Twilight Zone, another famous episode called The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. Actually, it was many characters in that episode. A lot of monsters coming out there. You'll see, even back there in 1960, that episode was showing us one of the biggest problems among humanity. And now look at where we are today. The monsters are really out in the open now. Many millions of them. Numbers too large to ignore. And they are willing to kill their neighbors just because they disagree with them. It's not about even fear, just because of this hate, which is partly a propagated hate based on misinformation. And I like to say, I'm not just talking about the right here. It's obvious with them. They've come out, and they've yelled in the streets.
He seems to show that he has a mental state that's...
Well, I was just wondering whether the boys and girls all knew what exactly it is.
But there's a faction on the left who has the same mentality, except they're only warriors on the keyboard for now. I have some recent videos about that.
Why we don't have to be balanced in our outrage. We have to be outraged because, first of all, the girls who had their demand their release now, just as we've done for other girls.
Continuing to bring this story up is stirring up more of the hate that keeps this war going. It also demonizes Palestinians and men.
Gender-based violence. This is bullshit.
Palestinians have been killed in Israeli airstrikes, 3/4 of whom are women and children.
And it's horrible, but you don't see Israeli soldiers raping.
Well, Dana, I think we're not, I don't want this to be the hierarchy of oppressions.
I just can't. She's talked about Jewish women being savage, and she goes, it happens. It happens in wartime. She can't just condemn Jewish women being brutalized.
What the fuck is wrong with him? But notice his wife is sitting right next to him. That's why a lot of men can't speak the truth. And like I said a couple weeks back, women are in control. He's got to play ball. Oh, like that woman said in my recent video. You just gotta get with it, or else.
You kind of just have to get with it or get lost.
Okay, so wouldn't that mean that women basically dictate the rules?
I think that women do dictate the rules. At the bottom line,
just want to override all of these kind of social rules. Once they get it into their heads that they're victims of everything, then suddenly they won't accept the normal conditions of living in this society.
I swear to fucking God, you stupid fucking cunt!
Stop the rhetoric that a woman is crazy or difficult. If a man says to you that a woman is crazy or difficult, ask him, what bad thing did you do to her?
I just caught that for the first time. Did you hear the people laughing at first? Yeah, because that's ridiculous.
That's a code. That's a code word. He is trying to discredit her reputation.
And then other people in the audience started cheering louder to cover them up.
She's a witch.
Michelle Lowe thought she could finally get rid of him. And we know what happened. And we could see Bart Kay's corpse lying in the background, finally taken out.
I'm back.